Welcome. Glad you're here. For today's practice, we will be using a strap, which could be a scarf, a dog leash, whatever you happen to have that's fairly lengthy and you can pull on or make loops out of. And a couple of blocks could be helpful. If you don't have blocks, not the end of the world by any means, but if you have them, or you want to try like stacking up some blankets or something like that, you're welcome to. A blanket or pillow, bolster, something like that. If you need any knee cushion, have that. Otherwise, let's get started today. So I'd love for us to start on our backs. And I'm actually going to start in a little bit of a heart opener. So for me, I'm just going to do a really gentle one. I'm going to take my blanket that's kind of folded, or your pillow if you have that. You can take it long ways so that it basically lines up with your spine. And the idea is that your head will actually be on this support. So depending on the length of your pillow or blanket, right, you might have yours way up here so that your head can be on it. That's totally fine. You can kind of find however it feels good to place it. And then let your arms come out side to side if that's possible. And here you can let your feet come apart and your knees toward one another. And rest, or you can stretch your legs out. You can do cross-legged. You can kind of just find a place where you can settle. If you'd rather be sitting, that's fine too. Your eyes could be closed or softly open. The idea being that wherever you are, settle into that space and bring your attention to your breath. In these times, and really all the time, our attention is a most valuable resource. Easy to let it get pulled and scattered. And so in this practice, part of the effort is really going to be placing your attention intentionally. And right now, let that placement be with your breath. Watching it move in and out. Maybe even noticing your breath change as you settle and as you pay attention to your breath. If you hear rumbling in my background, it's because there's a thunderstorm happening. So if it makes you feel better, you can picture a nice gentle rain. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Just noticing if your attention has strayed away. That straying is going to happen. It's a part of the practice too. So we just start to welcome it, noticing when it happens so that we can bring our attention back to where we want to place it. And in practicing that, here lying on the floor, maybe we can start to bring those skills of placing our attention, maintaining our attention even as we leave our yoga practice. So then from here, if you've got your legs outstretched or crossed or knees open in any way, bring your legs back up through center. Do a little lift and lowering of your hips. And roll to one side just to remove your prop. Come back. And your arms can stay out side to side or they can go overhead. And we'll go feet wide, feet maybe wider than shoulder distance apart even here. And drop your knees over to the right. So both knees are going to go to the right in this windshield wiper shape. And one thing that I'm doing here is I'm kind of pressing through the inner big toe side of my foot. And I'm lifting my heel a little bit because when I lift my heel, that kind of angles my hip and my shin in a different way. And it makes my knee feel a little bit better. So I like that. You can play around with that if you like. And it also starts to help me access my inner thigh. So a big place where we're going to be placing our attention, besides breath, as always, is going to be the inner thighs. And so if you can picture the inner thigh starting at your inner knee up to your inner groin, you can stretch out from there, imagining that you're making that left side longer. But you can also, from your inner knee to your inner groin, draw a line and then move in that direction. So it's like you're trying to draw your inner knee toward your inner groin. And the effect might be that your pelvis turns a little bit. It's like you're trying to draw your hip bone back in the socket. And then stretch it out and draw it back. Maybe one more time here, give that a try. And bring your legs back up through center, switch sides, drop your knees over to the left. And then same thing here, if you want to push through the big toe side, lifting your heel some, you can play with that. And then start to, from your inner groin, stretch out through your knee. And you might be feeling this in the top of your thigh, in your hip, in your belly, in your back. There could be lots of places where you feel it. But you want to place your attention on moving toward that inner thigh region and just kind of go back and forth between those two positions. Include your breath in your efforts. Make sure it's still moving. And bring your legs back to center. Bring your hands kind of underneath your hips and press up to your elbows here. So you can have your elbows down. If this is uncomfortable, just go back to where you were before and do it one more time on your back. But same leg position, drop your knees to the right. And the other thing to note here is that if dropping your knee all the way in is too uncomfortable, like is not workable on your knee, just bring it out. Like, bring it out of the depth of the range of motion and then try the movement. And see if you can find a range where you can play with it a little bit. Inner knee to inner groin to inner knee. Just trying to get a little movement in our hips, spine, pelvis, and bring attention to that inner thigh region. And then take your knees over to the left and work it here as well. It's okay if the inner thigh isn't where you're feeling the most sensation, right? That's just the place where we're intending to build awareness, that we can use it later. And then bring that back to center. Stretch your legs out and wide and come up to sitting. So you're going to end up in this wide angle sort of a position. And notice here, I'm not at my widest, right? Like I could stretch my legs wider, and that's not really the goal here. You know, give yourself like a 90-degree crotch angle is sort of how I would describe that. The 90-degree crotch angle. All right, and once we have that, you can keep your hands behind you. You could even lean back if that helps you out here. And so you could lean back and then twist from a leaned back position, or you could sit upright if your body allows for that. And we'll twist to the left. I'm gonna mirror you here. And twist to the left. And so as you twist, notice you can, from your inner groin all the way out through your inner heel, you can stretch, and that might let you twist a little bit more. And then can you keep like your belly and your chest, your torso in that twisted position, but then potentially draw a line from your inner heel to your inner groin and make that happen. So that essentially if you draw inner heel to inner groin, what you might get is a lengthening of that right side hip down toward the ground. Yeah. And then come back through center, go to the second side. And so your first move is going to be inner thigh to inner heel, reach. And that might lift your butt cheek and let you twist more. Then keep your torso in the twist, but go, now draw up, inner heel to inner groin. And when you do that, you might feel some stuff because the direction of your pelvis is going to be to lengthen toward the ground. Come back through center. We're going to add one thing onto that. So if you feel like if it's hard to sit upright, if twisting and getting that space in your inner thigh is the biggest challenge, then you'll want to really focus kind of in the same area we did before. But I will say that one thing, if you'll notice for me, when I start to twist, I get this back bend and my pelvis is really kind of hanging out on top of my thigh here. And so for me, as I start to twist and I go inner groin to inner heel and stretch out, the next piece of this for me is actually going to be drawing a line from my belly button to the top of my pelvis. They're kind of at a similar position. You can think about like a line drawing straight back. And I'm going to try and take the top of my pelvis here back. And I'm essentially, my belly is what's going to help me do that. But also I'm going to get a little butt squeeze when I do that too. So you can see it, I'm twisting, and now I'm going to go top of the pelvis back. And then I'm going to go inner heel to inner groin and elongate. So I've got both of those things. And then release, second side. So you can twist, go inner groin to inner heel, stretch long, like you're trying to reach your foot away from you. And then you can imagine if you were trying to draw your foot towards you, toward the midline, that's the other direction. But first, maybe what I'm going to do is take the top of my pelvis back. And that's going to engage my belly and my glutes a little bit. And then I'm going to draw my foot towards me, my inner heel to inner groin, and elongate like I'm going to put this back butt cheek on the ground. And release. Alrighty? Bring your legs in. You can stretch them forward for a minute here. Don't worry if if the number of places I ask you to place your attention starts to get too large. That's totally fine. You do the parts that you can make the connections for right now today. And then the next time you practice, you come back and you try it again and again and again. We're sending our attention to certain places and building connections. And you're going to have lots of opportunities today to build these connections with the inner thigh. And in this way, we can really start to create space in our hips and a lot of really good actions for our hips and pelvis when we start to place our attention in these areas. So now, let's go from here to a child's pose kind of shape. So your big toes are going to touch and your knees are going to go a little bit apart, and then sit back. And so I haven't gone down, I'm kind of sitting back and staying upright. And of course, if your knees don't like that, you can put something here to sit back towards. You could also keep your hips lifted and still do the actions I'm about to ask you to do. So that's fine too. But stay lifted a little bit here. So here's an opportunity where you could let your belly sink towards your thighs and be in more of a back bend shape like this. And for some of us, this is a really helpful shape. I might even squeeze my knees toward one another. That's going to get my inner thighs working, and then suck my inner knee toward my inner groin, and that's going to stick my butt back a little bit more. So I might do that. And then I might find that that makes me feel a little pinchy in the front of my hip. So without doing a ton of rounding, I'm going to take the top of my pelvis back, which is in this case up. So notice I didn't round a lot, but I did push my knees down a little bit, lift my belly toward the top of my pelvis, and get a little space. And now my belly's working, so yay. Okay. Now I'm going to walk my hands over to the right, move my belly over to the right, and stretch out. And so even here, I can think about squeezing my left knee specifically in toward the midline. And when I squeeze my left knee in, my hips are going to go out. So if I squeeze my left knee toward the midline, I want my hips to go in the opposite direction. It's sort of the idea of that move. So you can make that happen. And then if you get some pinchiness in your hips, do top of the pelvis back. And then crawl your hands out just a little bit more. Lengthen the back of your neck. Breathe. And then come back through center. Send your hands over to the left. Move your belly over toward your left thigh. And then with this right knee, draw it in toward the midline so that your hips actually go off to the right. So it's like your knee is going to the left, your hips are going to the right. You think about a seesaw, one side goes down and the other side goes up. So we're just making that happen here. The bottom half, the knee part is coming in, so the hip part is going out. And then if I feel pinchiness or like crowding in the front of my hips, I'm going to take the top of my pelvis back. My knees actually push down into the ground a little more when I do that. And then I'm going to crawl my hands out more if I want to do that, and that feels helpful. And I'm going to check in that I'm breathing. Release and come back through center. All right, come on out of that. Find a downward facing dog. Go ahead and take your feet wide, like mat distance apart, outer shoulder distance apart. Bend your knees. Here, can you think about taking the pinky toe sides of your feet and kind of flaring them toward your hips? That's going to turn on your outer shins and make your ankles really strong. And then from your inner knees to your inner groins, reach. That should send your butt up in the air more. From here, if straightening your knees is something that's going to come without compromising the length in your spine, do that. And same thing with rooting your heels down. If you're going to root your heels down, think top of the pelvis back a little bit to help you root your heels. Push through your arms. And lower your knees down to the ground. From here, take your left leg out to the side. So if I reach that leg out to the side, now what I have is the ability to push my foot down into the ground. And so if I push my foot down, this side of my hip is going to go up. Seesaw. Yeah? So you can play with that a couple times because we're going to use that. So just keeping that position, bring your left hand underneath you for like a thread the needle with your left leg stuck out, and you're twisting away from that. So I'm twisting over to my right here, and then I'm going to push my left foot down into the ground, imagining that that upper inner thigh is lifting. Breathe. slowly and let your head come down. Just see how much it comes down, if any. And then do that move again. Keep your torso where it is, but push your foot down into the ground. Notice what you feel in your hip and your back. And release that pushing. And then come back through center, switch sides. Take your right leg out to the side now. And then your right arm under, so you're twisting away from that leg. Let your head release as low as it's going to. And then push your right foot down so that your right hip, your right inner thigh lifts up. Breathe right here. And then slowly relax the foot push. You can walk that hand out a little more if that's accessible. And then do the push again. And release. Slowly come back out. Bring your legs in. Lift your hips, downward facing dog. From that down dog, walk your hands back to your feet. Forward fold. Even here, you can squeeze your feet in toward one another to access your inner thighs. And then from your inner ankles, inner knees, reach up. And this can be bent knee, right? So you can get that length. And if you get your knees straight and you kind of stay folded in half here, this is where top of the pelvis back can come in handy. Give you a little more space and a little more access to your back leg, the back of your legs. Hey, look forward, hands to your hips, come to standing. Grab your strap if you've got it. And you can just let it be long and wrap it around. Now, what I will say is if you can't really slide your hands up like this and get nice straight elbows here, then you might just abandon the wrapping it behind your back part and use it to stretch overhead like this when we get to that part, right? Otherwise, we're gonna wrap the strap here, kind of right at the base of your shoulder blades, which is at the base of your sternum, kind of that level. And if you start to stretch the strap up, you can get your arms almost straight, and then you can pull up, and that's gonna lengthen your shoulder blades up and give you a little more space in your spine. And then if your back is wanting to arch, you can do top of the pelvis back as you stretch up. And just the action of doing that creates something else in your back, in your hip flexors, the muscles that flex your hip. They're actually attached to your low back, your lumbar spine. And so we can just create some magical actions here by using our arms and using top of the pelvis back strategically. So for fun, start at the back of your mat or your space and step your left foot forward as far as you can. Okay. And then be in crescent lunge. Feel free to put your back knee down if you like. If you need to put your back heel down for toe reasons, do that. But otherwise, try to keep it lifted and bend into that front knee. So now, picture your inner knees. Flare the pinky toe side of that back foot towards your outer hip. So like that outer shin is staying strong, but then think inner knee to inner groin on both legs. And what should hopefully happen if you're doing inner knee to inner groin is you get this sort of like scissoring action where your upper inner thighs come a little closer together. Your pelvis might rotate some. Push your back knee as straight as you can. And then take the top of your pelvis back. And then, because we don't want to be all crunchy in the top of the pelvis, stretch up. Good. Pull up. Reach up. Breathe. Sit low in your front leg. And release your arms. Spin, spin, spin. So you're kind of in this wide angle shape. Then spin, spin, spin. Crescent lunge to the back of your space. Bend into your now right knee, which is the front knee. Take your pinky toe side of your foot and flare those pinky toes toward your outer hip so that this outer ankle stays really strong. Push your back knee straight. Top of the pelvis back. Stretch up. Pull up, reach up, bend into your front knee. Inner knees to inner groins. Top of the pelvis back, reach up. Release. Spin back to the first side. I know. First side again. This time, hold onto your strap with like fawn's thumbs facing outward. Bend your elbows. Roll your shoulders up and back so that they squeeze toward one another. And then roll your shoulders down a little bit. You can keep this or stretch your arms out, whichever one you do. Pull on your strap. Take inner knees to inner groins, top of the pelvis back. Lengthen like you were pulling up on your strap, and then curl. Release. Spin, 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 spin. Same thing, bend into this front knee. Inner knees to inner groins, top of the pelvis, back. Hold your strap and pull. Lengthen. Up, curl, back, pull on your strap. Release. Come back to center. Let your strap be free and forward fold, wide angle fold. And spin back toward the top of your mat. Step back to plank. You can do knees up or knees down in plank. But in your plank, even here, can you squeeze your feet toward one another? Take inner knees to inner groins, which look what's happening. My butt's going up, I'm getting back bend. I'm exaggerating it, right? Then top of the pelvis, back. Now my legs are helping me a lot, and so are my abs. Okay, lower to the ground. There you go, some bonus plank actions. And what's happening is when I squeeze my inner thighs toward one another and take my inner knees toward my inner groins and start to get that lift, my inner thigh line kind of connects with my hip flexor line. And so I'm getting a little more support from my legs, my hip flexors. When I access my inner thighs, I'm probably also going to be squeezing my quads more. When I take the top of my pelvis back, I'm accessing my abdominals, but I'm also accessing my glutes and hamstrings. And so I'm using this imagery, like these tricks, to help create more support for my joints in these poses. So I like pull more things in to help. And now when I'm on my belly, I'm gonna take my left forearm down, bend my right knee, and reach back. So see if you can catch the inside of your foot with your hand, or use your strap. And so it's the same idea. You would strap your foot, and then you want thumb up, elbow crease facing outward. That's kind of how you know you got your hand in the right position, whether you got it on your inner foot or holding the strap. That's going to help give you a little more space in your chest. We're going in the direction of dancer pose, a variation of dancer pose, Natarajasana, the arm back variation. And so here, and this is where a strap may come in handy, you can bend your knee some and bend your elbow. And then roll your shoulder up and back. And then stretch back. All right? Bend my knee, bend my elbow, roll my shoulder, and then stretch back. Now, top of inner knee to inner groin, or in this position, I literally just think squeeze my right knee toward my left knee. That's all I think. And then top of the pelvis back, and then twist my belly, my rib cage, my chest toward the ground. Ta-da! And then I can bend my knee in and do quad stretch. Inner knee, right knee, squeeze toward left knee. Just think of it that way. Right knee, squeeze toward left knee, release. Second side. Bend your left knee, reach for your inner foot or strap it with your thumb up and your elbow crease pointing outward. And so the first piece, in order to give you more space in your shoulder, you can bend your elbow. Roll your shoulder up and back, and then kick your foot back. Yeah? Take left knee and squeeze it toward right knee. That's the inner thigh. Take the top of your pelvis back, and then twist belly, rib cage, chest toward the ground. Feel free to then bend your left knee, taking your heel in. Squeeze your left knee toward the midline. Top of the pelvis back. Breathe. You can stretch your chest forward too if you want. Release. Bring your hands forward and wide. Come up onto knuckles or fingertips and then start to curl up. And so as I curl up, I'm gonna go pubic bone down, top of the pelvis back. I'm gonna think inner knees to inner groins. So I'm almost trying to stick my butt up in the air. But as I come up, I can't stick my butt up in the air, so I'm just activating my legs some. And then I roll my shoulders back and pull the ground towards me, chest forward. Take my shoulders now down toward the ground and release. Okay, down dog. Press back. Walk your hands back towards your feet, forward fold. Inhale, come up to standing, arms high. Release your hands down. And now step your right foot forward and lower your back knee down. Okay, you can adjust this however you need to. I might put a little blanket under my knees. And go ahead here and grab your blocks if you have them. So the blocks are not required here. The pose is not worse without blocks. Blocks are just a different way of accessing the pose. So try them if you want. One of my teachers has been using them and I kind of like it. I think it's fun and kind of different. So I'm going to use them. And you can or you don't have to. And I'm going to use my strap too. So I'm going to take these blocks here, and this could be just one block, but I'm going to put my foot up on them. You can also use pillows and stuff, but you don't want to feel super unbalanced. So if you try and put your foot up on blocks and you're just wobbling all over the place, that's not going to help you. And so you just do the pose right here. Yeah, foot on the ground. Great. Okay, so now the top of my back foot is down. So instead of flaring my pinky toes toward my outer hip, I'm going to take my big toe and turn it toward my pinky toe. So if my ankle was my wrist, I would be taking my big toe toward my pinky toe. Now I'm not moving my foot, I'm just making my outer ankle kind of tightening that area. And then as I start to sit forward, I'm going to take my left knee and squeeze it toward the midline. So left knee to the right, okay? And what that starts to do is if I pull my left knee to the right, my left hip is gonna want to widen a little bit to the left. Great, I'm gonna let it. I'm gonna bend into my front knee and I let this knee go out to the right a little bit. If you're really getting a lot of hip flexion, like if your foot's up on these blocks, you probably will need to open your knee out some. Whereas if you're more vertical, it won't matter as much. And then left knee to the right, top of the pelvis back. And when I take the top of the pelvis back, I notice that I push down into my front leg more. You might too. You can stay just like this. You can use your strap, or you can just reach through your hands and stretch up. Release. Second side. And we're just going to switch. Okay. Get your feet in this new position. Go big toe to pinky toe like you're karate chopping with your foot. Then inner knee toward the midline. Squeeze the right knee toward the midline. Bend into your front knee. Take the top of your pelvis back. Stretch up. With or without your strap. Release. First side again. With or without blocks. We're going to do a twist this time. Karate chop, big toe toward pinky toe. Left knee toward the midline so that your hips start to widen to the left. And then bring your hands to your front thigh. So here, go top of the pelvis back. Twist your belly, your rib cage, your chest to the right, upright twist. Squeeze your left knee toward the midline. Start to widen your hip to the left. Stay right here and work here, or wrap your elbow tighter. Now you can pull your elbow into your knee, but the idea for doing that is not to pull yourself more into the twist, but instead to pull this underside, in this case the left side, longer. And notice my shoulders are like going up, that's fine. I'm just trying to get length on that left side. Left knee toward the midline, hips out to the left, like almost like a crescent shape. Twist my belly, twist my rib cage. That's coming from my core. And then if I want to, I can move my arm a little bit more. And so you just work your way tighter and tighter into this twist. And for me, I start to get a little pinching, so I go top of the pelvis back. And then I twist more. And then once I get here, I can stack my hands, I can reach my arms wide, but I'm gonna take my head back a little bit. I'm not gonna like crank my neck, but I'm actually gonna take the back of my head as if my right hand were on the back of my head. I'm gonna push it back. Okay, release. Second side. Left foot up onto the blocks or not. Karate chop, big toe toward pinky toe side. Right knee to the midline so that my hips widen to the right a little bit. And then I start to twist. Top of the pelvis back, turn from my belly button, turn from my rib cage, turn from my chest and shoulders. Stay or go elbow down, pull that right side longer. Knee toward the midline so that my hips go to the right. Top of the pelvis back, twist. Maybe take my arm outside of my legs. Top of the pelvis back. Whatever you want with your arms, but take your head back. Think of like the part of your throat where you really swallow. Take that back. Sometimes that helps me. Release. Let it go. Downward facing dog. Breathe. Walk your hands back to your feet. Forward fold. Look forward, come up to standing. Okay, you might use your strap for this, and you might find a wall or the back of a couch or a chair or something to help with balance. And if balance is just really not usually an issue and you can stand on one foot and focus on other things at the same time, then that's fine. You can stand in the middle of the room or whatever, but find yourself some balance. Because from here, what we're gonna go for is bent knee, grab the foot. Now, for this one, I'm gonna grab the outside of my foot, or I'm going to strap my foot and bring it up. And whatever you do, you wanna be able to bend your elbow for this one so that you can roll your shoulder back. And now I'm gonna take, and I don't care which foot you're doing, honestly. You can choose. So for this one, it's gonna be bent knee toward the midline. But because we're standing on this other foot, you can think about like, if I take the top of my pelvis back, one thing that I said was that for me, that made me push my standing heel into the ground more when I was in this kind of pose. So here, in this pose, I'm gonna squeeze my bent knee toward the midline. I'm gonna take the top of my pelvis back and I'm gonna imagine inner groin to inner heel, push. Knee toward the midline, but inner groin to inner heel, push. Top of the pelvis back. And then if I want to stretch my top arm up, I can. I'm trying to go knee to knee, but I want to get the midline first and then stretch my knee back to line up with my other knee. I'm going to release because my standing leg rear is getting tired. Okay, second side. So you can see we're focusing on a lot of stuff here, which means you may or may not need just some balancing help, at least to start. So now I'm gonna add one more thing. So in this bent knee, I'm gonna karate chop, big toe toward pinky toe, to get my outer ankle strong. So you can think about it like this pose, big toe toward pinky toe, knee toward the midline. Yeah? Big toe toward pinky toe, knee toward the midline, and then top of the pelvis back, inner groin to inner heel, push down. And that's gonna help me really get my standing leg fully on board. And then I can work on using my butt muscles to extend. This is where hamstring cramps can happen, but if you get the bend first and then go back, it's at least less likely. Inner knee in, top of the pelvis back, inner thigh to inner heel. Stretch up if you want. That's like a flourish. That helps you add a little more hip flexor action. Okay, relax. That's good. Good enough, good job. Okay, let's add a little thing to that. Let's go feet hip or shoulder distance apart. Now I'm gonna go feet toward one another. So I'm squeezing my inner thighs. I'm gonna bring my hands to my back here. I can put my fingertips down, or I can point them up if I have the wrist flexibility, or I can just sort of cup my thumb and my forefinger around my low back. What I want is bent elbows. Because remember, we've been doing this shoulder roll thing. We're going toward dancer, so we need like some shoulder upper back action. And so what I'm gonna do here is squeeze my feet toward one another, bend my knees, and take inner knee to inner groin, which means I'm gonna stick my butt back. Okay, now I'm gonna roll my shoulders back, squeeze my elbows toward one another, and then reach my chest forward. So I'm getting a lot of back bend happening here. You can stay right here and then do a little top of the pelvis back, and you can just work right here. Good back bend. Or keep everything the same except shoot your hips forward, straighten your knees. And then you're in standing back bend. Lift chest, squeeze your feet together. Top of the pelvis back, lift your chest. And then come up. I snuck that one in there. Standing back arch with a little support. And so it's this idea that we're gonna use this inner thigh action, but then we're also going to use our butt Send hips forward. Take the top of the pelvis back to give length in the low back and start to create more lift in the upper back, just like we did when we were lunging and stretching up this way. You know what I mean? So it's like we're building from the ground up, okay? Let's do that one more time for fun. In case you were disoriented by the surprise. Okay, squeeze your feet toward one another, bend your knees. Take inner knees to inner groin, stick your butt back. Roll your shoulders, squeeze your elbows toward one another, reach your chest forward. Stay right here and work. Or stand up, send your hips forward, keep everything else the same. Squeeze your feet toward one another, inner thighs back, top of the pelvis back, chest up. Come up. Nice work. Downward facing dog. Stretch back. From here, step your right foot outside of your right hand and spin your back heel down. So now walk your hands forward into the left. So your upper body is coming into a sort of down dog shape and your lower body is like warrior two. Once you get here, squeeze your feet toward one another and then go inner knees to inner groins. And so the inner knees to inner groins is likely going to stick your butt back, but the idea is that it's coming from your legs. You're not just sticking your butt back, okay? So you might work that action, like that might feel exactly like what you need. You can also, to go deeper in this pose with the knee bend, what you can add is top of the pelvis back, meaning toward the ceiling. And then once you get top of the pelvis back, let that help you open your knee to the right a little bit. And you can sink down into your right thigh more. Crawl your hands out more. Push the ground away. And then bring your hands back through center. Lift your back heel and lower your back knee. So now, left hand stays down, right hand goes to your thigh. Back knee, you can go toes under or toes flat. Make your outer ankle strong. And then go knee toward the midline, top of the pelvis back. Twist your belly, twist your ribs, twist your chest, twist your shoulders. You can even spin your right toes to the right some and roll your right thigh out as you take the top of your pelvis back. Stay here or bend your back knee and pull your heel in. Roll that shoulder. Top of the pelvis back. Twist. Release, downward facing dog. Step your left foot outside of your left hand. Spin your right heel down. Walk your hands forward and to the left. Squeeze your feet toward one another and then take inner knees to inner groins and take those thighs back, your pelvis back. From here, keep all that, but do top of the pelvis back, meaning that front heel is likely going to push down a little more. Spin your left knee open as you take the top of your pelvis back. Both things at the same time. Sink deeper into your left thigh. Maybe walk your hands forward, maybe push the ground away. Release that. Come through center, lower your back knee. Right hand down, left hand to your thigh. So you can turn your left toes out if you want. That might feel nice. Take your back knee toward the midline. So my hips are actually moving to the right a little bit. And then I'm even going to, as I take the top of my pelvis back, I'm going to rotate my left thigh open some. Spin to the left. Stay or bend your back knee. And then you might have to go through it all again because to catch your back foot, you might have had to do some stuff. So I'm going to squeeze my front foot and back knee toward one another. Back knee toward the midline, hips to the right. Top of the pelvis back, belly, ribs, chest, shoulders, head, back. Release. Down dog. Plank. Knees up or down. Take your legs and squeeze them toward one another. Then inner knees to inner groins. Then top of the pelvis back. Breathe. Lower down to your belly. Bring your hands forward and wide, and you can adjust like how far forward based on how back bendy you want to be. So I'm thinking here, even here, like if I squeeze my knees together and take my inner knees toward my inner groins, my butt sticks up in the air. This is very much like standing back arch, right? I can start like this. I can roll my shoulders up toward the ceiling, and now I can go pubic bone down, top of the pelvis back. Shoot up. Play with that a little bit to get into your cobra. Roll your shoulders, like bend your elbows and roll your shoulders up, back. And then as you move your shoulders down, heart forward. Release. Downward facing dog. Press back. Walk your hands back to your feet, forward fold. Look forward, come up to standing, arms high. Release, hands down. Okay. You might use the wall again. Vrikshasana, tree pose. So in down dog lunge, we did our inner thigh actions, and then we used top of the pelvis back to help access that thigh spin open, right? And tree pose is really similar. So, I don't care so much how high your leg goes. If your foot lands on your knee and that's like as high as it goes, leave your foot on your knee. That, unless it's painful, that is totally fine. It's not gonna harm you, okay? So I try and use my hand to get my knee to bend as much as I can, and then spin that open and place it on my inner thigh. So use support here as much as you need to. And then think about this initially like the standing heel to butt, where you squeeze your legs toward one another, and then you think, you can think like inner knees to inner groins initially, but then remember this standing leg, we did inner groin to inner heel, so that leg pushes down strongly. And now top of the pelvis back, do that along with spinning your knee open. Top of the pelvis back, spin the knee open. Top of the pelvis back, spin the knee open. And then stay or stretch one or both arms up. And as you stretch up, remember pulling your shoulder blades up, and do that with your muscles. Release. Okay, let's try the second side. So again, feel free to use a wall so that you can get all these actions, right? So check it out on this side. As I bend my knee as much as I can and spin open, I get what I get. Now, I'm gonna squeeze my legs toward one another and take my knees toward my groin. So I'm thinking about this sort of like I'm about to do standing back arch, just like I was doing down dog lunge. But then I'm gonna take the top of my pelvis back and spin this knee open. But notice, like my knee is not lined up with my hip necessarily. It doesn't matter. I'm going in that direction. I'm also reaching inner thigh to inner heel on the standing leg. And then maybe I stretch up. But if I stretch up, I'm gonna stretch like I mean it. For this one, you could even make fists like you're pulling the strap up. And notice what happens when you add that much action. Release. Breathe. And if you're thinking that your basic poses are feeling a lot harder than usual, congratulations. They probably are. Okay. Chair pose. For chair pose, your feet can be hip distance apart or together, doesn't matter to me. Sit back. Squeeze your feet toward one another. Take inner knees to inner groins. And sit low. Then, keep everything in the legs the same. Take the top of your pelvis back. So notice I'm not tucking. I have this reaching back to make my spine extend. And then I'm just taking the top of my pelvis back. And what that's going to allow me to do is sit more and more upright. And I can have my hands forward, squeeze my shoulders back. I can stretch them up. Then breathe. Inner thighs and top of the pelvis all at the same time. Stand. Release. Okay. One more before we dancer. Okay. This is going to be a crescent pose. And we'll do this with our feet hip distance apart, I think. So if you send your hips to the right and really send them out there, reach those hips out to the right. You can think here, once you get them out there, I can do that one of two ways. I can just send my hips to the right and kind of keep my thighs not active, and then I can squeeze my inner thighs toward one another and get a little more action in them. I can also do that seesaw principle where on this right leg, I can pull my foot toward the midline so that my hips go wide. So I could send my hips to the right that way, and that might feel good. So you can try it both ways. You can try just sinking your hips to the right and then squeeze your legs together, push from your right inner thigh to your inner heel to get some action. Or you can do pull your right foot to the midline to pull your hips wide. You can play with that and see what you like better. Once you get that, top of the pelvis back. Good. Once you get that, top hand maybe to the back of your head. Keep your legs strong, top of the pelvis back. Lean over. Good. Come back through center, second side. Send your hips to the left. And then get your inner thigh action going if you didn't use it to go to the left. Okay? Root inner groin to inner heel, or pull that leg toward the midline, whatever works for you to where you feel like you have leg support here. Then top of the pelvis back. And then left hand to the back of your head. Top of the pelvis back. Stretch. Come back to center. Let's go again. This time, you can do it supported like we did. You can put both hands behind your head, but this time we're going to add a little bit onto this. As you go over, you might notice that that turning your chest toward the ground is what wants to happen. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep our pelvis where it is. So this outer hip has to keep coming forward so that your pelvis doesn't roll open. And then the twist has to come from top of the pelvis back, turn your belly, turn your ribs, turn your chest, head back. Okay, that's sort of the actions that we're going to go for. So one or both hands behind your head. Send your hips to the right. Make your legs active. Inner thighs active. Then keep this top hip forward. Take the top of your pelvis back. Put weight into your heels. And then turn, belly button, rib cage, chest, push your head back. Lean over more if you got some. And then come up. Okay, second side. Send your hips to the left. Lean to the right. Put weight in your heels. Take the top of your pelvis back. And then turn. Belly, ribs, chest, shoulders. Push your head back. Lean over some more. And come up. Release. Okie dokie. Downward facing dog. Walk your hands back to your feet, forward fold. Look forward, come to standing. Okay, eagle. Bend your knees and cross your right thigh on top of your left. So you can do toe tap eagle or hovering eagle, it doesn't matter. Right arm goes under so if I go right thigh on top, right arm under, and I can do the shoulder hold or the Twizzler arms. Squeeze your knees toward one another. Take your inner knees toward your inner groins, your pelvis back. Okay? Like chair pose, maybe sink deeper. Then go top of the pelvis back and let top of the pelvis back be what brings you more upright. Squeeze your elbows down, lift your chest. Release. Second side. Cross your left thigh on top of your right, your left arm under your right. And then squeeze your legs toward one another, inner knees to inner groins. Sink deeper if you like. Then top of the pelvis back. Let that be the thing that lifts your torso. And then elbows down, chest up. Release, arms high. Okay. The variation of Natarajasana dancer that we're going to do is going to use all these little pieces. And so my suggestion is to use a wall because you want to be thinking about all the stuff that's happening behind you. Okay? And part of the beauty of this pose, like part of the key salient feature of this pose is this is the chest up variation. So there's like variations of dancer where we're here, we're more like leaned over, right? This isn't that. This variation is chest lifted, shoulder back, and then it's the leg lift. And so if you use a wall, sometimes that helps you keep your chest lifted. And that can be helpful. So if using a strap helps you get more access to space in your shoulder, helps you catch your foot more easily, do that, because much like the knee bend that we did at the very beginning, or pretty much the very beginning, you want, if you can, to grab the inside of your foot so that your thumb is pointing the same direction as your toes and your elbow crease is pointing out. And again, I don't really care which side you do first. And so here we go big toe toward pinky toe side of the foot, knee toward the midline, standing leg, inner thigh to inner heel. All that's the same. Then we start to go, I'm going to even bend my standing leg knee a little bit so that I can go I can go inner knees to inner groins and lean back. Roll my shoulder back and then start to kick back. Inner groin of the standing leg to inner heel. Lifted knee, squeeze my knee toward the midline And then as I lift, I'm using my butt muscles to lift. So I'm doing top of the pelvis back like crazy. Top of the pelvis back, top of the pelvis back. Use my butt to lift. Use my arm to lift. Then I go, turn my belly button to the floor, turn my chest, turn my shoulders. So I use the twist. Then I release because my butt muscles got tired. Okay, so there's this element of this piece that we did. There's the element of top of the pelvis back, reach through the chest that we've worked on. And there's the element of top of the pelvis back, twist, 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 twist. And you got to put them all together for this piece. And I'm breathing hard. So if you're not breathing hard, you can feel really, strong and full of endurance. If you are breathing hard, you have company, okay? So I want to get my foot in such a way that I could bend my elbow and roll my shoulder. And even if that means I gotta take my knee out to the side so that I can get my shoulder set up, I want to do that. Then I might even bend my standing leg here. Karate chop, big toe to pinky toe, knee to the midline. And then as I go top of the pelvis back, I can take inner knee to inner heel, straighten that leg. Curl my chest forward, lift my leg back. Knee to the midline, top of the pelvis back, curl my chest forward, lift my leg behind me. Lift. Knee to the midline, top of the pelvis back, curl my heart forward, lift my leg behind me. Good. Release. We're going to do one more time on each side. And this time I'm going to let you get your legs situated, and then I'm really going to cue that twisting of the torso. Okay, so first side again. Do all the work, shoulder back, knee to the midline, top of the pelvis back, curl the chest forward, lift the leg. Then top of the pelvis back, belly turns to the ground, rib cage, chest, shoulders, curl forward. Release. One more time, second side. Catch your foot. Knee to the midline, inner thighs back, curl forward, top of the pelvis back. Make sure you've got shoulder rolled back, and then start to lift your leg. Top of the pelvis back, knee to the midline, heart forward. Belly turns toward the ground, rib cage turns forward, chest turns forward, shoulders turn forward, heart reaches forward. Lift the leg behind you. Release. All right. Nice work, that was something. Okay. From here, come to this pose. This is catching my breath pose. And then I'm going to work my way down. And notice I'm working my way down with this thighs back action. And then if I'm going to go to straighten my knees, I do a little more top of the pelvis back and start to slowly round just a little bit my spine, relax my neck. Maybe I can grab opposite elbows if that feels good. Release your hands. Find a squat or come to sitting. We're just going to be in squat for a moment if that's something that feels nice to your body. Otherwise, come to sit cross-seated. in. And then sit. Stretch your legs out in front of you. And then cross right shin over left and find cross-seated pose. And from here, see what's easier to do. Turn, if I cross my right shin in front of my left, I'm gonna turn to my right. You're welcome to just twist right here, but I'm gonna actually lift my left butt cheek up off the ground and bring both hands down. And once I get here, I'm gonna take this left inner thigh and I'm gonna reach it. I'm gonna widen it away. Maybe I have more access to that action now. And then I'm gonna start to stretch, widen, widen, widen. And then I'm gonna start to reach that outer hip toward the ground. So the way that I do that, I go inner thigh to help me widen, widen, widen. Then I go top of the pelvis back, open that outer knee to help me reach down. And what that does for me is it stretches my back and my hip, my back. Then I breathe. And then I come back to center. Stretch your legs forward and switch sides. Take your left shin in front now. Lean over to your left, and you're welcome to stay and work just this nice twist. But you could lean over, lift your whole right side situation up off the ground, and then think about reaching, like widening your inner thigh that out away from you. Then top of the pelvis back, spin the thigh open to help you reach that butt cheek in the direction of the ground. Release. Come back through center. Stretch your legs out in front of you. Scoot forward and lie onto your back. And once you get onto your back, maybe bring your hands palms down under your butt. And just do a couple of little rocks. You could try making fists if you want like a more intense butt massage, but your hands have to be able to tolerate that. Mine don't really like that, so I just use my hands and rock my legs side to side. As long as your shoulders feel okay, do that. And come back through center. Let go of your hands and cross your right ankle over your left knee. And you are welcome to stay right here and start to hug your knee in this way. You could also bring the whole thing in. And here at first, do it actively. And so notice if you just pull your legs in, they'll come in so far. But now, what if you take the top of your pelvis back, meaning belly button to top of the pelvis toward the ground, like you're pressing that top of the pelvis into the ground, and then see if your legs can come in further, and then thread and hold wherever it feels most useful to you. Staying just a little active here. Notice what that feels like. Feel free to rock slowly, small. And release. Second side, cross left ankle over your right thigh. And start to draw in either both legs or just one. And then before you reach through, go top of the pelvis back. See if they'll come in a little further without overstraining. And then you can reach through and hold For me, when I reach through and hold, I keep a little bit of that active drawing in because I actually feels better to me in my hips when I do that. I also get more of like a low back massage when I rock side to side if I'm doing a little bit of that action. So you can play with it and see what is true for you. Maybe different than me, you know? And release that. Take your feet down to the ground, lift your hips and lower them back down. For me, I'm gonna start my rest by keeping my feet about shoulder distance and dropping my knees in and taking my hands just to my belly and finding a nice comfortable position for my elbows to be in here. And so in this practice, there was a lot of instruction about places where you could put your attention, which generally requires that we put forth both mental and physical effort. And the yoga is in the effort. It's in challenging ourselves to place our attention and notice when we're challenged to keep it there. It's in finding the ways that the poses and the actions don't come easily and putting the effort forth anyway. And it's through the effort, through investing in that effort, that we see shifts, that we see our intentions come forth. Intention without effort is nothing. When we place our attention and we put forth the effort, we let go of our preconceived notions of what the outcome should be, whether that's the shape of a pose or the next phase of our lives. Instead, we open ourselves up to things we may not have even imagined possible. You can stay where you are or stretch your legs out, open your arms. And when we put forth true effort, we must rest. And sometimes it's the rest that requires a little effort. So give yourself that. Rest your body. Place your attention back on your breath. Notice what you notice. If you have the ability to stay longer, please do. When you're ready to move slowly. Move with your breath. Make your way over to one side and pause there for a breath or two. And then slowly bring yourself to sitting so that even as we transition into and out of our practice, we do that also with attention, with care. Thank you.